Good evening, everybody. It's your boy D Mac. Let's talk. What's happening, congregation? So today, I just wanted to come on for a little bit because something was on my mind. I was just talking to my neighbor, Mr. Wallace. He's an older gentleman, much older, and he was talking to me about things that were going on back in the day when he was growing up. This is the 40s and the 50s when he was growing up, and man, he just gave me some great insight on some things. And I just wanted to talk about something that me and him had stumbled across. Washington, D.C. Yes, the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. This, see this right behind me? Yeah, that's DC. Um, Lately in DC, there's been a thing going on. There's been a real big controversy because they've been discussing making Washington DC a state. But the problem that comes with that is this: if Washington D.C. becomes a state, it's a mostly Democratic area, and this is not just Washington D.C. Mind you, Maryland and Virginia is also going to be included in on this. So the District of Columbia it consists of Washington D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. So this is a large area that we're talking about, and it will affect voting. And so this is why they do not want to make Washington D.C. a state. The Republicans don't, because they know that it's mostly Democratic, and most of the votes would go to the Democratic side of the board. So they're really pushing against this, and they understand this. This is something that's been going on for a while, but they try to make the case that Washington D.C. Oh, well, they're not big enough. No, that's a lie. Washington D.C. is bigger. It has a bigger population than Wisconsin. So it's not a thing about population like they tried to make it out to be, or any of the other little lies that they've come up with trying to thwart this from happening. What it really comes down to is that these areas are mostly Democratic. And if these areas, and if this becomes a state, if Washington, D.C. becomes the 51st state, all of those votes will go towards the Democrats, not the Republicans. And so this is where the pushback comes for Washington, D.C. becoming the 51st state of the United States. This is really, really bothersome to me because this is identity politics. This is what this is. And this is also another form of voter suppression. I'm pretty sure if it would have benefited the right wing, then there would not be so much pushback against this. But being that the right wing will not benefit so much on this, then they're pushing back really hard on it. Now, I was born in Washington, D.C. The area I came up in right now, well, back then, I'll say that the house that my parents had back then was $27,000. That's how much it was for that home back in 1970. I'll say 79. I was born in 77, but I'll say 79. The price of that home was $27,000. Right now, to this day, that very same house, sitting in the very same spot, it's been renovated and stuff, but it's the same house, $500,000, 500,000 or better for a $27,000 home years ago. Um, that just blows my mind. That's really astronomical. And this whole area has become a metropolitan area because we lived on North K Street. And if anybody's from DC, you know that North K Street is not that far from the Capitol at all. It's in walking distance to the Capitol, a few blocks or so. And growing up, I didn't stay there long. I was 3 years old when we moved away from there, but I can remember going back to visit because I still had family up there. And so they've built up all of these areas and they've gentrified all of these different places and stuff like that, but it's still not enough because it's still a blue state if it becomes a state. But yeah, they don't want DC to become a state at all for that simple reason. Now, back in the day, they said DC was going to be the District of Columbia and Congress was going to be fine and well. But now we skip forward. Um, we've come a long way from where they were back then whenever they first made this stuff up. So now we have to get into this story real deep. We have to start researching what's going on in Washington, D.C., and we have to pay attention to what's taking place. That means that we have to start voting for these local entities. It's not all about the president who's the president. We have to vote for these local entities in our local area so that we can put the people in place that we need in place, that we desire, that are going to have the interest of the people at heart. And we can reach that person, and we can also hold their feet to the fire to get things done. This is what's necessary right now for us more than anything, is voting locally, because it's going to be the local voting that's going to determine whether Washington, D.C. becomes a state or not. And this is something that this country needs to handle, because we're doing so much right now that's underhanded and deceitful. We're going to end up like Haiti. We're going to end up like South Africa if our government continues to do the things that they're doing. Because I'm telling you now, there are people like me who are getting fed up with the lies, with the filibusters, and with all of the deceit and manipulation and everything else that goes on with our government. And it's coming to a boiling point and a tipping point. Now, I'm not going to encourage anybody to go against our government. We've already had that happen before with the insurrection. I'm not that stupid, nor am I that naive. But what I will say is that if we continue on the path that we're on, I'm speaking to the U.S. government, with all of the lies, with all of the manipulation, with all of the filibustering, the gerrymandering, and whatever else term you want to come up with, if you keep it up, we're going to be like Haiti, and we're going to be like South Africa. And you best believe that. Doubt it if you want to, and end up with the consequences of your doubt. I'm just giving a warning, a fair warning. This is a cautionary tale to let you know that you're heading down the wrong path, U.S. government. So all of you people who are trying to fight against the things that are for the people and the things that are to better this nation, which we really need at this time because our morale is so low as a country, you are a poison to this country, and you should be very ashamed of yourself. But if you were trained that way and you don't have a heart, then I wouldn't expect you to. But it's okay, because the United States is going to continue on no matter what the outcome of this is with Washington, D.C. That's my home. That's my home. I can't call it a state. I say my home district of Columbia. That sounds so stupid. No, that's my home state. Washington, D.C. is my home state, and it should be recognized as such. And the only reason that it's not being recognized as such is for political reasons. Politics get in the way of way too much stuff that would better our lives and would increase the productivity and the progress in this country. If we could get rid of at least half of the politics that we have in every aspect of our life, then our life would be a whole lot easier, and it would be a whole lot better. Politics is not good for everything. That's why there was always a separation of church and state, because they understood that politics and God do not mix, because politics are not of God. Now, I ain't gonna say not all politics. There are certain aspects of politics that are not of God, because law and order is of God. But that's the only part of politics that is of God. The rest of it is man's ego, man's desire for power, and man's sickness. It's a mental illness, and studies show that a majority of the leaders that we've had have been sociopaths or even psychopaths, and at the least they've been narcissists. So understand that we're dealing with people who are mentally ill, who have not been diagnosed, or they've been diagnosed and it's been hidden from us. now. And so having that understanding will give us a better grasp on how to deal with these people, because you can't come straight forward with a sociopath and a psychopath like you would a normal person. But what you can do is figure out how to build a strategy sociopath interfering and causing problems. Hey, you want to come over here and talk to the people? Say, hey, this is my baby PJ. Me and PJ has been talking about politics all day. She been giving me all of this information. This does not come from me. I would like to take all of the credit for it, but this girl is a genius. She's going to do some great things for this world too, because I'm definitely going to make sure that she's prepared for this world. Um, yeah, that kind of threw me off a little bit, but that's okay. So pay attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C. Our country depends on this, and it's going to make a whole lot of things different when DC becomes a state. So I want to go ahead and give a salute to Washington DC and everybody who's fighting for it to become the 51st state. It's needed, and let's make it happen. This is your boy D Mac. Hey, sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word will always heal you. I'm out.